I'm very interested in finding out what happened in history, because it also helps me to place myself in Europe as a European citizen. Culturally, I cannot say I feel Portuguese and I cannot say I feel Chinese. I'm something else. And I think this something else I will be in a eternal research as long as I'm living. So I'm not really obsessed about China. It's just I'm looking for more aspects to my identity.
I see. That seems even fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. Hi everyone, welcome to What's on Your Feed. Today my guest is Michelle Chan. She runs a cooperative for artists in Portugal, in Lisbon, and she was a sound technician for over 15 years. How are you? Thank you for being here, Michelle.
Thank you for having me here.
Such a pleasure. I'm very curious. How was it putting all the channels together?
It was actually fun. When you're too busy, you just watch a little bit of this and that. And then suddenly I realized that there are in fact channels that I go more often than others.
Right.
So those are the ones I'd like to share with you.
Great.
Okay, so I'd like to start with this one, Accented Cinema, created by a Chinese YouTuber. We never see him and I don't know his name. I don't know any YouTuber's name, but saying it, I know yours. I'm sorry.
Oh, cool. I'm very honored.
Well, this is really cool because he has a Chinese perspective on his film reviews. He doesn't just review films, he's like a historian.
Okay.
Movies, in Chinese culture in movies. The first one I'd like to share with you would be this one. He starts by showing a few of the posters. So what he's saying that he realized suddenly that different countries have different posters for movies.
Right.
And Chinese posters have a different feel. As you can see the cherry blossom flowers over here. Those are the original ones. So sometimes you get really good movie posters, but we don't really realize when we go to the movies, we don't really care about those posters. And in fact, what he's saying is that there are a few Chinese distributing posters that are really, really good, and they are a form of art and it's for it by itself. And he also talks about the designers as well. So it's quite nice that he mentions the name of the designers. This is a movie about people who restore works of art in China. And these are the posters he made. It's beautiful. It really makes you want to watch the movie. The poster itself is a work of art, I'd say. Because this is not in the film generic. So you can see this is embroidery. So
wow.
Embroidery restoration.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And porcelain. This is amazing. Jackie Chan Kung Fu is fake. What he actually means is that Kung Fu was in fact... So he starts with this American wrestling example. What he's trying to say is that Kung Fu played a very important role in the history of China in all the wars until the Western invaders came with guns. Then Kung Fu lost its bellic significance and became a performance art. And what better means than movies?
Right, so exactly.
The reason why Kung Fu has developed so much in movies, much more than other martial arts, is because Kung Fu is very performative. It's beautiful to watch. It goes through the history of Chinese martial arts in the movies, and it's quite interesting to watch the evolution. So he talks a little bit about Bruce Lee, a bit about Jackie Chan and other artists that are now trendy. So it's quite interesting to see what they have learned from each other and from the Kung Fu history in movies as well.
This sounds really, really cool.
So now this is a Portuguese YouTuber continuing the Kung Fu subject. I know him from working in film, and he's a colleague of my cousin David Chan, which I will introduce just now. And they have made a few shorts together where they can show how Kung Fu is going in Portugal. So it's
cool,
nice.
Cool.
My cousin is this one. In this story, he's supposed to be the boss of the other two. And this is Salgueiro, which is the main character in this short. Stunts learn how to fight without hurting the other one, the opponent.
Right.
Actually, when we're watching, it kind of hurts.
It's
in the nose, but they're fine. So they must be very good at fighting, but they also must be very good at not hurting, at making it beautiful as well.
Yeah.
In the same channel, they have these videos that they make. They're actually making comments on a few things that they find on YouTube. They're actually not idiots, but there are some mistakes that you make when you're fighting in front of a camera. there that you shouldn't do, otherwise you will hurt yourself or you will hurt the opponent. I don't really like mockery videos, but the good thing about this is that their comments are very professional.
Yeah, I see it.
But they're very funny as well because they have references of childhood movies that they watched, and it's very funny. So if you're a fan of action films, then this could be a good, entertaining thing to watch.
Very cool. That's your cousin.
That's my cousin. The next channel was still on martial arts. I can't say the name of this YouTuber because unfortunately my Chinese is really bad. I can't read these characters.
Mine is bad as well, so I don't know.
All right. So I feel better now. These are videos that I try to watch every day. To me, this is the concept of Wonder Woman. This is who I'd like to be. In And so apart from the exceptional Tai Chi that she shows people and that she teaches people on her videos, also the fact that she's being filmed on a cell phone is quite interesting because, this format, this vertical format is something you don't get on TV and you don't get in film. In film, you usually get a horizontal frame, and this is vertical, which I think really gives us a sense of movement that's completely different from a square screen or a different kind of screen. She's not being filmed in slow motion. She is like that. Her legs don't tremble. It's quite perfect. And this is what I aim to do one day. I don't know. I should just take lessons instead of watching videos and trying to find the sofa and the television.
It's the start. That's the start.
I know. I did have some Tai Chi association one time. It was great, but I should try it. I should actually try it again. She's great. This is a channel where she also has a few recipes that she's showing, but she's also good at training. She has videos where she can, apart from the demonstrations, she can train you. You can train from home. There's one I particularly like. Well, these are the recipes I showed you.
Yeah.
But there's one I particularly like. She's facing a wall on this one, and now she's going to turn her arms. And she never bumps the wall. Never. And when I try to do this, I always bump the wall, but I have to keep practicing, in fact. So these are just warm-up exercises before doing Tai Chi. So this is something that we can all try to do at home without getting hurt. Okay, we'll move on to House Ghost. This is the main guide. You get a lot of episodes on how to prepare tea, what are the best ways to prepare it, how to smell the different teas, how to choose your tea when you're buying something or when you're just choosing to prepare. Well, the very different scenarios every time. And he's just showing us what to do if you really want to enjoy. I love tea and I can't do this at home. It's just too much hassle and I don't have time, but I love watching this.
Calms down, right?
I know, but it's actually, for me, the main reason why there should be tea houses is because they would do this for you. In fact, it tastes differently. It's well, I love tea. I don't drink tea from the tea bags. I hate that. So I do. So I'm in the middle between the supermarket and the tea house. But in fact, if you can get the chance to go to a proper tea house, then you should, because it really tastes differently.
Yeah,
when you get the chance to drink tea like that. Oh, he does what I do. Amazing. No, sorry. This is the first time I see this, because every tea workshop, they do it with a tool to get the tea so that you don't insert your fingers in there. In the tea box. And he does the same thing I do. He just goes directly with his fingers.
Yeah.
Great. I love that. Yeah.
Cool.
I just realized that.
All right. I see. Okay. Awesome.
Actually, I have a curiosity to share with you about tea that I'm starting to investigate, which is, I believe, and maybe this is because I used to be a sound technician in movies for so long, I believe that hot tea sounds differently from cold tea when you're pouring it into the cup. And actually, in movies, there's something else that we see in European movies. When tea is being served, it's always cold, always. And you can see that there's no steam, and you can see that it sounds cold. A lot of times, unfortunately, the teapots, they spill the tea. So the tea doesn't go into the cup, it goes somewhere else. So this is something different. When you watch an Asian movie, the tea definitely goes into the cup, and it's hot and it steams and it sounds really hot. So it's stupid, but
very cool. It's like another care for the tea.
I know
in Asia.
Well, anyway, but I'm not criticizing European ways of doing it. I'm just saying that, well, maybe, especially in Portugal, Portugal is a coffee country.
Exactly. Although, it's probably something that they don't notice the nuances.
It's a coffee country, and a lot of people serve tea as they serve coffee.
Yeah.
But it's a totally different thing. We're getting there. There are a lot of tea fans nowadays that you wouldn't find as many a few decades ago, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
Daniel Dumbrill is a Canadian guy who's living in China. And because when you're living abroad, you always meet a lot of foreign people, he decided to have this channel. He interviews his friends about their businesses, his foreign friends about their business in China, and what's the difference between having that business in China and in other countries. But he also approaches other aspects of politics and culture in China with his Canadian perspective. But it's also what I like about Daniel Dumbrill is that he's very diplomatic, and I believe that his approach to all the subjects, he means a better understanding of the opposites between the West and the East. And he's contributing to world peace, I would say.
Awesome.
One of the interviews that he made is very interesting. So in this interview, what was it like when it was Hong Kong was British? Well, the main objective is not to say that it was fantastic or that it was the worst. What he aims to is actually to ask Chinese people, why is it that when Hong Kong was British, they were saying they were Chinese, or they would identify as being Chinese, and now that Hong Kong has returned to China, they are now saying that they are Hong Kongers and they're not Chinese. And so he has a long chat with this guy who's from Hong Kong, and he explains the differences between one system and the other system, and why these people who are there now, who are now living there for 100 years of democracy, have still not related to its democracy and to being Hong Kongers. They will still consider themselves as Chinese, and now they don't anymore, which is funny. So it's a very nice interview.
I'm super curious about this one.
Yeah, and so there's also this interview that he's making with Uyghur activists. The United States and other countries have signed a letter in which they accuse the Chinese government of genocide. And so Daniel Dumbrill decided to interview a Uyghur activist about this abuse, and in fact, it's not as much as the United States government has been trying to pass. Although there is discontent, so it's quite an honest testimony, I'd say, and they don't get too political, but it's very interesting if you're into these subjects that you listen to this interview. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, more than eager to see another version that's not the narrative that I'm constantly consuming. So
sure.
It's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. There's also another interview. Sorry, this is the last one.
Oh, sure. No, go ahead. Seems awesome.
So there's another interview that this is a Chinese man who was present at the Tiananmen protests, and he was also present in the Hong Kong protests. And they're making a comparison between the two. So it's his point of view is quite interesting as well, because he's got a legitimate comparison. Yeah. So basically, what he's saying is that Tiananmen protests didn't start as being a protest for democracy. That was an idea that was brought by journalists who were present. And then things evolved. And by the way, the guy in front of the tanks was not crushed, but we never see that on camera. So he actually left before being crushed. But unfortunately, other people were, and those were not filmed. So it was quite serious. I'm not saying that the Chinese government didn't act brutally, because it did, but in fact, it was not because of democracy.
I see.
Or at least not in the beginning. But I won't talk too much about this, but I'm saying that, there was an approach to capitalism, and some people became very rich and other people became very poor.
Yeah.
This happens in many countries. So the protests were about hunger.
Right.
But that's never mentioned. So it's quite interesting as well. Something
Great.
else. So we'll move now towards art. KARNART is I'm not sure how I should define it, but Portuguese theatre company. They're amazing. They do amazing work. The reason why I chose this one is because I have recently watched this video that was released in 2020. So we were already in a pandemic season, and this, I don't know, maybe we should invent a name for this kind of art, because this is not film, it's not theatre, it's not dance, it's a bit of all this and much more, I'd say.
So this is the performance.
This is a performance. It was shot with a cell phone, and it's got amazing sound and images. And in fact, what they will be doing is they will be uncovering a package. By the name Corpo Velado, we already know that's something related to death. But in fact, as they are uncovering this, we get to see a lot of different fabrics, and you get to relate to different kinds of Portuguese tapestry, and it tells a history of a country as well through the fabrics. And it also, I'm going to just tell you about how I felt when I watched this, because I don't know if everyone would feel the same. What it means to me is that when I look at these fabrics, I remember when Portugal was so different, and things from my childhood, and some fabrics that we don't see anymore, some tapestries we don't see anymore, and they tell stories. So they unwrap all this, then in the middle we get to see death, and it's a very respectful ode to death, I would say.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. And from then on, after we see death, then I won't tell the rest, because you really have to watch this and feel.
Sure.
They will wrap everything back again, but with different light and different sound. And people who are watching this have a totally different experience, totally different from the second part to the first part. So it's very mysterious and also very intense, I would say. So this is something I would recommend.
Awesome. In a weird way, like in a popular way, there's a niche on YouTube, a very popular niche that's unboxing,
Unboxing.
So this is kind of like,
yeah,
it's like an artistic version of the unboxing style.
You're so right. The thing is that they put it back again.
Yeah.
And then the second part, that gives you totally different sensations. It's amazing. But yeah, you're totally right. This is unboxing.
This unboxing and then boxing back again.
Yes, very nice, very nice. Let's move on to some music.
Great.
This is a French channel.
Le
Cargo, do you know it?
No.
Le Cargo is they call themselves webzine musical, a musical webzine. Actually, a channel for showcases. It's not, these are not concerts, these are showcases. So artists send their best to this channel. They have more than 1,000 videos. What I particularly like about this one is that sometimes, or most of the times, they are filmed in a very precarious way. Although this is aesthetically beautiful to watch, the thing with the cell phone cameras is that they have sound, and the microphone is on the cell phone as well. So that means that you will hear much better what's closer to camera than what's further away. So in this case, it could be possible that you would listen to the bass more than you will listen to the singer, which is quite nice. It's audiovisual professionals, sound technicians would say, well, it's quite bad.
Right.
So I quite like it. I like to hear the breathing of the musicians. Sometimes it's actually the clothes that are scratching onto the instrument, or sometimes they have bracelets and rings on the fingers, and it's quite nice to have that into the music as well. I like it.
That's great. That's so raw.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Wow.
You wouldn't listen to all that if you were there present with the musicians, because you'd be far at a distance and you wouldn't hear that. It's quite nice.
So curious.
This one in particular, Glenn Hansard and Lisa Hannigan, they harmonize, which is they are singing in different notes, but together they sound beautifully. And also sometimes when you get really lucky, you can actually listen to singers that use their voice as a musical instrument.
Like humming.
Even with words, but it's amazing. It's not like you're listening to the musicians and the singer. Actually, the singers are musicians, and they should have more chances to show that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I do recommend this is a very nice one.
I'm loving all of this. Oh, I know this one.
I really like this channel. I don't come here very often, but when I do, I stay here for a long time. The images are beautiful, and their choices are they're odes to diversity.
Yeah.
Which is the main theme in colors. I used to sign their magazine.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know them before.
I don't have it anymore, unfortunately, but it was a very good magazine where they had correspondents in many, many countries in the world, and they would give news of things that you don't usually get in the news. The video I'd like to share with you is not of music, in fact.
Oh, okay.
So Fari is a French comedian. He's a stand-up comedian, and he's very funny because he makes fun of his own community and he makes fun of his country. But there's also a problem. There's always a problem with immigrant communities criticizing the country that received them. So he does it with so much love. He talks, in one of his shows, he's even saying that I talk about France as I would criticize my mother for being hysterical or for being this and that. So he does it with a lot of love. And this is quite interesting. So he's doing his thing here.
Yeah, he's doing stand-up, right? He's not singing. He's not a singer.
But he's also kind of rapping at the same time. It's
lovely.
It's very beautiful. So there are many videos in colors that one could watch, but this is actually something I would really recommend.
Awesome.
I would like to talk about a Portuguese musician,
Rui Ribeiro.
I love this channel. This is a channel just for his music, so it's not really a very diverse channel. But what I like about Rui Ribeiro, I love his music for once, not just because I play piano, because I love to listen to piano, but also what I love about Rui is that he's so simple, so generous, that he would share his music scores with the public as well. So if you want to play at home, you can, it's amazing. It would never sound like him, but it's still and what I love about his videos is that he loves showing Portugal to the world, and it's quite beautiful.
Awesome.
And the other thing that makes his case very interesting is that when he decided to invest in his own music, he was not as successful as he is in China, and he is now working in China as a composer and a conductor. So he conducts an orchestra in China, which is quite interesting as well.
Yeah.
So he's playing classical music, and he found his public somewhere else, and that's amazing, I'd say.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's still attached to Portugal as well, because not only because he's Portuguese, but because he's including Portugal in his art. The
Portugal in the videos must be like saudade.
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
I don't know how to say saudade in English. There's no real word, so I'll just say
a matter of pride.
Yeah.
There's no translation. So now we'll move on to history. I have 2 or 3 history channels that I'd like to share. One is really dumb. Impérios AD. This is a Brazilian channel about history. They make these videos. They're not very long, 13 minutes, 14 minutes, about pieces of history. So they have this quite organized. So the decisive battles, other Second World War battles, here European history, Asian history, what. This is a great way to introduce kids to history. This is what I use when I want to talk about history with my son.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, so this is amazing. So
Batalha de Aljubarrota, that's so funny. There's an animation.
Yeah, of course, this is just an introduction to it. Then you have to skip to books. This is just a way to help them memorize a few things.
Definitely, a great start.
Well, this is not an animation channel, so this is...
It's history. Well, that's a great name for a channel.
Yeah, let's go there first.
Knock knock, who is it? It's history.
It's history. So they have so many videos. They're not very long videos as well. So this is also an introduction to the subject.
The whole world.
United States history, but also a lot of world history as well, especially if they are related somehow to the United States.
Okay.
But the good thing about it is that the United States, they influence the whole world nowadays.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Like all of us are related to the United States, whether we won or not.
we should actually all vote for president in the United
States. That's It's very, oh, that's, yeah. It's kind of very true.
Yeah, the good thing about this channel and the fact that it's American is that when you get to subjects like Taoism, Buddhism, Confucianism, they make you, takes long, a 7-minute short telling of the story, but they're quite accurate at the same time. So they're not defrauding it. Mm-hmm. Because if you were looking for a Chinese video on this subject, or you would find a 10-hour video on each of them. So this is quite good for an introduction. If you're just trying to vaguely understand what the difference is and then trying to see which one you'll study first, then this would be the video I would recommend. This is quite honest and they have a very fun approach to it as well, and very contemporary approach to it. So you can actually put yourself in that time and think in a day-by-day analysis, not just a philosopher analysis. So it's quite interesting. This is a video I would suggest.
Very cool.
vpro. This is a documentary channel where we can find several documentaries about politics, world economy, society. This is about the changing world. So a changing world in many parts of the world, and how some decisions in one side of the world have an enormous influence on the other side. And also how our choice for being blind to what's going on somewhere else is actually going to hurt us in the future.
Yes.
There is one that I would like to share with you. This is a 46-minute documentary, and Peter Frankopan is a historian that I have recently found when I was listening to a conference, and I really like his approach. He's written a few books on the Silk Roads, and it's amazing how the world is connected, and it started to become connected for so long, and we now think that we tend to isolate Europe from the Americas and from Africa, and in fact we can't imagine how linked we are. And his first book on the Silk Roads is about how this all started, and then he wrote another book about the new Silk Roads and how they all relate to China somehow. So it's quite interesting. So this 46-minute documentary is about how blind people are in Europe when they decide to not know about what's going on in the rest of the world. For instance, Europe is receiving a lot of students from all over the world. So there are scholarships, but they're not sending their students to other parts of the world. So when people leave the universities and they get real jobs in areas where they can actually influence the world,
they haven't been there.
The European students only have a European approach to it. So they're limited in a way.
Yes.
And that will have an enormous impact on how the countries will be empowered in the future and in the present as well. But if your students only have a European way of thinking, they will be very limited in their jobs, in their future jobs. So this is a quite interesting documentary to watch.
Again, super curious. And Europe is getting so old.
But this is something he talks about people, Europe being old. It's not something to be ashamed of.
Sure. It seems like people just get too comfortable. Would it be something like that? Or
he makes a very interesting comparison with an aristocratic family that doesn't have any money anymore. So they live in a beautiful castle, but they can't afford the stuff they used to have. So now the lady of the house has to cook, and some windows are being chipped and some walls are being chipped, but it's okay. It's still beautiful, but it is what it is. You don't really have to, you can be proud of it. You don't really have to be ashamed of becoming old, and you just should just take the most out of it. It's quite interesting because he is European, but he has a very global point of view.
Approach.
Very global perspective.
Awesome.
Move on to another channel, the How To Academy.
I don't know that one as well.
The How To Academy is, in this approach for mindset, is a channel.
Oh, they have different channels, right? Mindset.
Yeah, they do. Mindset is just one of them. These are all scholars and specialists, and they bring a person personal testimony on their approach on things. Like, it's quite controversial. They don't comb their hair, as you can see on this one. But it's nice because it's very informal. And this particular channel for Mindset explains a lot of our way of thinking and why we think this way. Why do we feel obliged to think in some ways? This is very cultural, not political, I'd say.
Zizek,
this is
great.
This is one I'd like to share, the cultural diversity one.
Mm-hmm. They're being interviewed, or
there's a bit of everything. There are interviews, there are documentaries, and there are just personal points of view. But these are not just opinions. These are scholars. So they teach at universities, and we get the chance to listen to them here.
Yeah.
The reason why I think this is better than TED Talk, for instance, is that I believe that TED Talks are too short. They're actually just a sample of the person's work.
It's like those introduction videos, right?
The problem with the TED Talks, I would say, is that the people feel the pressure of time because they can't talk for more than 15 minutes or whatever. And they also feel the pressure of telling jokes, which is something that became trendy, I think 10 years ago. And it hasn't stopped ever since. I mean, why do you have to be funny?
You don't. Yeah, TED Talk is not for that in particular. But I see people start making that to keep people from sleeping or something. But
I don't know.
It's wrong. It's just a nervous thing. And then the other guy made a joke, so now you have to try to make a joke somehow. So it goes wrong.
They always start with a joke.
I noticed that.
Put on a few jokes in between, and you feel the pressure to it. I mean,
yes.
So whenever I am looking for the work of a certain professor or a scholar, what I do is I look on YouTube and I see where they're talking, which channel is it, and if it's a TED Talk, I never watch it.
I see.
Because I know it won't do justice to that person. Mitch Anderson is not a YouTuber. He's a film director, a documentary director. He spent 4 years working on the same project, but it's worth it. The reason I got here is because I was looking for a documentary that would teach me about what's going on with China and all the fuss around China, and what's the problem with China being very powerful nowadays, and why is this such a sensitive topic. And I was finding many documentaries showing the European and the American fear on China. I wonder why that would be. So finally, I found this documentary called China's Century of Humiliation. One of the most interesting aspects of this documentary is that he interviewed Chinese and other Asian professors about what happened in that century. So the reason why in universities they talk about the century of humiliation is the century in which China had to give in to all the Western invaders.
Yeah.
And so there is an American approach to it and an Asian approach to it in the same documentary, and they complete each other. That's why I think this is a very good way to understand the present. So when did everything start? What happened at the time? And why is China communist nowadays? What happened? Why is Chinese communism working better in China than other types of communism in other countries? What's the difference? What happened here? So
it's awesome.
Yeah, if you watch this documentary, maybe you can understand a bit of what brought them here, and what happened in between, even into the culture of the country and to the way China is seen by other countries as well. So this is definitely a great documentary, and I'm very happy that it's totally available on YouTube. Okay, so on the same channel, you can find a different documentary called The Men Who Lost China, which is about the American politicians who are trying to create an alliance with China, and why that alliance didn't happen.
Okay.
So when he means the men who lost China, he means the American politicians who lost the opportunity for that alliance. So it's quite interesting as well to see that now people are chatting, they're whispering about a possible Cold War between China and the United States. And 100 years ago, the situation was totally different. They were actually very good friends. And so it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective as well. Okay.
Wow.
So the last one, Bob.
Okay. This is amazing, Michelle. Some of the channels that I'm most curious of all, and I've been very curious about all of the guests. It's excellent. Thank you.
I seem to be obsessed about China, but the thing is that because I'm a third generation migrant person, what happens with the third generation migrants is that it means that grandparents left the original country, and it happens in every culture. Third generation tries to go back to that culture.
Yes.
Always like this, and I'm very into it. I'm very interested in finding out what happened in history, because it also helps me to place myself in Europe as a European citizen. And then a lot of people ask me if I feel Portuguese because I have Portuguese citizenship. But in fact, Portuguese citizenship is a set of rights that you have in a specific country. It's not your culture. It can be your culture, but it doesn't mean it's your only culture. I mean, just because you have that ensemble of rights in a specific country, I mean, you have the right to vote, to be assisted, to pay taxes, you're a citizen of that country. But culturally, I cannot say I feel Portuguese, and I cannot say I feel Chinese. I'm something else. And I think this something else I will be in a eternal research as long as I'm living, because it depends on your age and what your attention goes to. So it's kind of like that. So I'm not really obsessed about China. It's just I'm looking for more aspects to my identity.
I see.
I would say, yeah.
That seems even fun, like...
It is fun.
In my perspective, it's like everyone from my family, it's like everyone has been from here, and that's...
You find it boring?
I find it really boring, really being incredibly boring.
If you're in that kind of family history, there is a peace of mind that you can take advantage from.
I see it. Maybe it's just so ingrained that I only look to the exterior.
But that's great as well, because this way you can dedicate your art and yourself to many subjects. Whereas I noticed that, for instance, some of my, I can't say this about David Chan, my cousin that I spoke about earlier, but I would say about other cousins of mine that are working in finance or working in different areas, and they're not really turned to cultural aspects of their origins. I have a conflict as well. It's like feeling some kind of guilt that they're turning their back on 4,000 years of civilization, and it's like you're not responsible anymore if you don't look back into your culture. And it can be a very heavy weight on your shoulders. So just enjoy it.
It can become like even white guilt.
Oh no.
It also seems like a terrible...
I wouldn't place it in white or any other color, because even Chinese people who never left China, they would feel the same way as you. So, or a Mozambican person who never left Mozambique. So the fact that you belong and your family belongs to the country where you live gives you certain aspects of your life that you may find boring in a way, but they're actually a very good peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so
cool.
The last one, Micul Masten, he has only 468 subscribers. He's not a very active YouTuber. And in fact, he only has 2 uploads, but they're actually worth it. These are 2 parts of the same documentary that has not been shown on TV. This is called The Gate of Heavenly Peace. There's part 1 and part 2. And we're back to the subject of the Tiananmen Square protests. And so this is the whole history about what happened. And it was filmed by the participants. The very interesting thing about this is that the journalists were all staying in a hotel whose balconies were facing the square. So every journalist had a room in this hotel, and they all had the same perspective of the protests.
Literally
the same. And So the same pictures, the same lenses, the same everything.
Yeah.
And they were not in there in the confusion of the protest. This director, she managed to get all these archive videos from many places and made this huge documentary. And it's quite interesting to understand
what really happened,
what exactly people were fighting for, how it happened, what they felt. These, as you were saying, these are Chinese people who never left China, whose family is Chinese and whose family never left China as well. So they have the peace of mind that allows them to criticize their government and to help think what could be better, and which is something that a migrant doesn't dare to do.
I perfectly see what you mean. Yeah.
This video and these pictures were taken from that balcony that I was telling you about. Every journalist had the same point of view.
Yeah, that's all I know.
Yeah, that's all you know.
If this was today, this seems like the perspective of people with their cell phones.
Well, the thing is that this is a famous square for protests. Protests in the 1980s wasn't the first one. There were many protests before in Chinese history. And so they go through that. And they also explain a little bit of how Chinese government accepted protests up to a certain point and stopped accepting it when the Western media changed the message. Then they decided to put an end to it in the most drastic way.
Okay.
So yes, this is a very interesting. This is a long documentary in 2 parts, but for people who are interested in the subject, I would really recommend this.
Awesome. So this was the last one, right?
Yeah.
So we're on to the top 5.
From number 5, I would say Le Cargo.
Oh, the music channel.
The French music channel.
French music channel.
Which offers a huge diversity of music and also the curious aspect of camera microphones, which I love.
It's incredible.
And so number 4, the vpro documentary channel. It gives us a different perspective of the world. Daniel Dumbrill would be my number 3, which is, I would say, my main source of information about what's going on in China on video. Daniel Dumbrill has a good perspective because I can feel that he's not trying to please the government, the Chinese government. He's quite honest about a lot of things. I feel that, but he's also, I think, contributing to world peace.
Yes, you mentioned that. So curious. So curious.
Number 2, I would say, is the Tai Chi channel.
Oh, great! With a Wonder Woman.
Not that because I think it's a better channel than the others. It's just because I go there every day.
Right. You consume it constantly, right?
So the first one would be accented cinema. I worked in film for many years, and I'm very attached to that. And I also like his Chinese accent, I'd say.
Nice. Nice.
So yeah, that would be my favorite.
Thank you so much, Michelle. That was great. It was really, really great. I'm very curious. I wish I wouldn't have more work to do now, so I could just stay and watch the video start right away.
Your fans will like it as well.
I'm sure they will.
It was a lot of fun. I realized a lot of things about myself, which is great too. And I also learned a lot from your other guests. Because
cool. Yeah. Awesome. I'm loving every episode. Want to thank you so very much for taking your time, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao.